Hi Shirley, this is Greg. You're asking about how to kind of trim off objects that are extending beyond the document um, border there. And it's really easy. We can do a clipping mask, and I'll show you how to do that. I've got three different little objects here, each one on its own layer, and you can see that in the Layers panel. So each one is on its own layer, and that's going to become important when we do our clipping mask. So I just wanted you to see I've got three objects there. And what I'm going to do is create a clipping mask. So I'm going to add a layer at the very top of the layer stack. Create a new layer, and I'll just name it clipping mask. So that layer is right at the top of the layer stack. Now I'm going to get my rectangle tool, and I'm going to choose no fill and no stroke, just so I can see what I'm doing. It doesn't matter if you have a fill and a stroke. It will work with or without those. But it's easier to see without the fill and the stroke. So I'm now just going to draw a rectangle the size of my document here. I don't need that little dialog box. I'll close that. And I don't need that. So now I've got I'm going to use this rectangle to create a clipping mask, and I want to make sure it's right on the perimeter of the document. So there's my clipping mask layer. And now I'm just going to select everything on the artboard. The rectangle we just drew and the three other rectangles. So everything is selected. All those layers are selected. And now I'm going to go up to Object and down to Clipping Mask, and then over to Make. And you can see it trimmed off those little objects there that extended beyond the perimeter of our document. What it's also done is remove them from the layers that we had them in and put it on its own layer. So I can turn off those layers, they're still there, but what it's done, it's put it on its own sublayer. And that can make a difference if you had your layers named and organized in a certain way. So that's something that is something to look out for. You may want to save your document in its original format before you do this. I can still use my direct selection tool to select the object. You can see that they're still there. It just has trimmed off parts of them visually. I can also select everything and go back to Object, down to Clipping Mask, and then Release. And it looks like it's released the clipping mask, and it has, but those objects are still on that layer that it put them on when we created the clipping mask. And like I said, if you've got your layers organized in a certain way, that may make a difference for you. So always save a copy of your document before you do the clipping mask. But that's how to trim off any kind of objects that extend beyond the perimeter of the document.